Let's get back on our market street, and Temple Ashaju, our business correspondent at the Nigerian Stock Exchange, is back on the show. Temple, let's continue the conversation from the trading floor here around those banks' earnings. So all eyes are now focused on Access Bank and Stanbic among the top big boys banks on Broad Street.
Yeah, those are two key areas or two or three companies now that investors are also watching. However, earlier we had a conversation around Zenith Bank, talking about the kind of culture that we've been seeing around it. Yesterday, what we saw around it was more of a culture from some investors. Right now, we've seen some 91 trades on Zenith Bank. The share price has risen beyond 17 naira. And of course, it's the most actively traded stock in the market at about this time. Some 10 million units of Zenith Bank, heavily traded at this point in time. And it looks like this particular stock will close in the green today. Again, if we refer to the numbers yesterday, which makes it look like right now some investors have really digested the numbers. We know that the gross earnings was up by more than 3.5%. The non-interest or non-funded interest income was actually more of a growth, except for the weaker performance that we saw around the interest income yesterday, as released in the numbers. But again, some analysts pushed out some reports saying that Zenith Bank may be having issues around meeting its 60% LDR demand. That's the loan-to-deposit ratio, regulatory demand by the central bank. So that's something that actually made investors not to, show some interest in it yesterday. But perhaps they're just trying to now put money on it because, again, it's around 17 naira. By the time it moves up higher, there will be opportunity for them to take profit, as they've done on a couple of other stocks that we've seen lately. The other area of interest for investors now will be Forte Oil, because Forte Oil yesterday released a statement to the stock exchange saying Ignite Investments and Commodities Limited has now indicated interest in taking over 500,000 equity stake in the company. And that represents some 0.04%. So that takeover bid is at 66 naira plus 66 naira 25 kobo or so. And that's something that is pushing up that particular company right now. Recall that Forte Oil has actually been trading at 16 naira, 14 naira resistance level for some time. But for weeks now, it has actually been hanging around 16 naira. So with the indication of interest from Ignite Investments and Commodities at this point, we should see that particular stock, shooting higher, because the rate at which this particular company, 0.04% equity stake in this company, will now be mandatorily bought by Ignite Investments and Commodities looks very, very attractive. For some investors that had bought at the time when it was trading around 40 naira, if you see it's now being offered 66 naira plus. I mean, it's some good money for you, and so you just can possibly edge out, or if you just want to reduce it, you reduce it. So the company is saying to investors and the investing public, shareholders and the investing public, that they should get in touch with the registrar. That will be Veritas registrar, and get all of these deals sealed. I think the qualification date is actually tomorrow, Friday, the 25th of October. And of course, the bid now opens sometimes, I think, 4th of November next month, and closes at a particular date, which is actually has also been given in the communique or notice released to the Nigerian Stock Exchange yesterday, Bosen.
A lot around Forte Oil, as you said, because I'm sure since the exit of Femi Otedola, a lot of adjustments keep going on in the company in terms of key management, staff and others trying to reposition this company try to get the new investors to dig in very well and take this Forte Oil to levels where you find like Total, Mobil, W1 PLC, and others, because this is one of the oldest indigenous oil marketing firms in Nigeria from the days of British Petroleum to Abin African Petroleum, then later to Forte Oil. So it's a company that is well heeled in Nigeria's oil sector, with all that Femi Otedola, the billionaire businessman, did with that company over the years, repositioning it, rebranding it, and all of that. Yeah. So it looks like these new investors are seeing what you call brand value, brand equity, whatever it is in there. I think that's where this shares value is coming through for those who are there. That is one good news. Yesterday we got earnings from Total. We'll talk about that maybe tomorrow. But again, if you go back to Zenith Bank and the bank story, one item that I saw on the numbers released yesterday was Zenith Bank able to reduce its operating expenses from 100.4 billion naira to about 94 billion, able to shave about 6 billion naira, thereabout, off its operating expenses in the first 9 months of this year. That's quite remarkable for me as a journalist looking at those numbers and say, if you're able to cut your costs at this point in time, that is even far much deeper than GT Bank did. I'm sure investors, like you said, waking up this morning, spend the night, poring over those numbers and say, look, if this company is reducing operating expenses at this particular point within the Nigerian environment, I think I need to stick around with this bank.
You're right, Bosun. The reduction in operating expenses is a remarkable record there. Something as well that is really remarkable in this particular number will be the loan growth, which they've been able to do. It's a mandatory thing that came from the CBN. So we've seen banks in recent times, trying to also push for all of that, and that's an effort that they've been able to. That's an area that they've been able to channel more efforts to. That is something that when analysts and traders now sat down yesterday and digested all of those numbers, they were able to come up with these key areas as something that will make them to now put down more money on this particular stock this morning.
Tempo, thank you. Hold on a second. We have about 30 seconds. I'm sure this is just coming to us. We're having this conversation. Guinness Nigeria, according to Stock Exchange, just released its numbers for September, and it's not looking really good. I'm sure you'll be looking at this later. Gross profit is coming here at 7.9 billion naira, which is lower than 9.1 billion naira reported for the same period last year. If you're on the news, you see this already coming to revenue by Guinness Nigeria, second largest listed brewer, is also down to 26.8 billion from 28 billion reported a year ago. Operating profit is down from 1.66 billion naira to just 681 million naira. And if you just go to the profit for the year, Guinness Nigeria PLC is now reporting a negative 370.4 million against a profit of 835 million for the period ended September last year. Remember, Guinness Nigeria's year end is June. So this is just Q1 numbers, and it's coming through. Earnings per share for Guinness Nigeria is now in the water. 38 kobo for period ended September 2018, now reporting a negative earnings per share of 17 kobo for the period ended September. This is one pretty bad numbers coming from Guinness Nigeria. I'm sure, Temple, you put this in context and get a lot more details into that. I'm speaking with Chimezie Obiwagwu at 1:30. Thank you so much, Temple, for coming through on the show this morning. This is the numbers coming through from Guinness Nigeria. But again, just get about 1 minute, would you, to check through a bit of the details of yesterday's Naira bond auction by the debt office. And that's what Ramat Baba wants to talk to us about very quickly. Give us the details of that. 150 billion Naira was what we saw as the oversubscription.
Good morning.
Yes, Ramat. Okay, yes, so, we're talking about the bond auction.
Yes, so 150 billion was on offer. That's 50 billion across the three maturities. Subscription was over 255 billion. And of course, and I think there was so much subscription mainly because yields have dropped in the secondary market significantly. As a result, top rates were 14.05%, 14.233%, and 14.6% for the 5, 10, and 30-year bonds, respectively. The market hasn't been really active in the bond market, except for a few days when we see buys here and there, but it's not been anything really drastic. I think activities has shifted more to the treasury bills end, because that's where we've seen the offshore guys playing. There's been buys there, except for yesterday when there were sales. And the sales were more like just a few people taking position, selling off to take profit and probably shedding a bit of position in expectation for today almost.
All right. Thank you so much, Ramat Baba, Chief Dealer in charge of fixed income at FBN Quest Merchant Bank. And that's how we wrap up today's show on Business Morning. I'll see you again tomorrow, Friday. Let's have a TGIF, shall we?